What's up, everybody? Welcome in Refuse to Lose podcast after dark here, live from Houston. Brady Farkas with you from Mariners on Roundtable and right here on the Refuse to Lose podcast. I appreciate everybody who wanted to hear a post-game one stream, everybody who reached out on social media, who voted in a poll that I put out on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it these days. You wanted to hear it. I wanted to talk about it, so here we are. Mariners win 4-0 on Friday night at Dakin Park in Game 1. They are now officially in first place all by themselves. 1 game up on the Astros, 2 more with Houston to play, 8 games remaining in the regular season. And as of now, the Mariners currently hold the number 2 seed in the American League playoffs. This would mean Mariners would get a first-round bye and would go right to the divisional round. We're not quite there yet, but it is certainly possible, and the Mariners now control their own destiny in terms of making that a reality. Let's just kind of talk about a few things that are going on right now. 1, I promise you I'm very happy the Mariners won. I'm happy by the position that they're in. You are not going to hear me scream or get as riled up as I want to because I don't want to get evicted from the hotel. It is almost midnight. I have no idea if the neighbors next to me are awake. I'm trying not to get complained about or evicted. Secondly, I have no idea what's going on with the lighting in this hotel room. So I apologize that it looks like I'm in a cave, and this is a very nice hotel, so I don't want to dog the hotel at all, but I don't know that I've ever seen a hotel that didn't have just a universal light for the room. And here we are just dealing with a handful of lights near the bed and one little one near the office desk. So that's why it's dark. That's why I'm not yelling. We're going to talk about Bryan Woo. We're going to talk about the game itself. You're going to hear there's small conversations, but you're going to hear my conversations with Dom Canzone and Luke Raley that happened in the clubhouse earlier today. You can get in. You can ask a question here if you're watching on YouTube. You can ask a question if you're watching on Twitter, X. You want to talk about the game. You want to ask about Woo. You want to ask about things that I've seen. You want to hear about my travel day, which was a little bit nutty. So we'll do all of that here. Try to be on half hour or so. Put the podcast out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for the people who didn't hear it live. But without further ado, let go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
All right, let's talk about Bryan Woo first. Okay, because I think that's the overarching story of the day. The overall theme of the day is that the Mariners win. We're all happy, but Bryan Woo gets hurt, and it's evidence as to why the Mariners can't have nice things. I think that is the prevailing thought here. So Bryan Woo was dominant. He looked unbelievable early. Fastball was up to 98, good sweeper, good slider, throwing strike 1, controlling counts, and dominating a good, I don't know that the Astros are consistently a good lineup, but dominating a really good group of hitters, especially in the first 4 or 5 for the Astros. When you talk about Pena and Correa and Altuve, and you talk about, Paredes is back and Christian Walker's down at 6, there's a good group of accomplished hitters there, and Bryan Woo was dominating them. The fastball up was electric. The fastball away was electric. Pretty right-handed lineup for Houston. He carved through them. He used the slider and the sweeper. He used the changeup in a big spot to Cole. So Bryan Woo was phenomenal. Let's talk about what happened in the bottom of the 5th inning. So bottom of the 5th inning, I believe Bryan Woo starts that inning with maybe 54 pitches. I don't know why that number sticks out to me. So Bryan Woo is carving up the lineup, and in the 5th, he's pitching well. And there's no sign that anything is wrong. But all of a sudden, I notice Edward Bizardo is throwing. And I am wondering at first. I actually at first was not wondering if Bryan Woo was hurt. I was wondering, all right, 5th inning, we're about to go to the 6th. Are we going to turn the lineup over? It's going to be the 3rd time through, or the Mariners being conservative with that whole 3rd time through thing. They don't want guys to get another look at Woo, whatever. So Edward Bizardo is throwing, and I'm not quite sure if Edward Bizardo was kind of lightly throwing on his own or if he's really going full bore. The bullpens are kind of, out of sight here. So Bizardo, though, we know is throwing. And I put out on social media at the time, hey, Brian Woo's pitch count is in great shape, and Brian Woo looks great, but Edward Bizzardo was warming up. And I found that noteworthy because, again, I thought maybe the Mariners were getting scared off by the third time through the order. And then we get to the bottom of the sixth, and Brian Woo comes out for warmups. And I admittedly do not watch every single warm-up throw that a guy takes. But I noticed Brian Woo throw one of his warm-up tosses exceptionally light. And that didn't necessarily bother me, again, because, again, I don't watch every warm-up toss. Some guys go kind of max effort in warm-ups. Some guys kind of go half effort. Like Hunter Brown for Houston, I was amazed at how light his warm-up tosses were. Now, I know it's a different level, but when I pitch in men's league, like, I'm trying to conserve the arm at every chance that I get. So my warm-up tosses are light also. So it didn't raise a red flag at first. And then I believe there was a second throw from Brian Woo that just looked uncomfortable. And then at that point, Dan Wilson came out and Kyle Torgerson, the trainer, came out, and Woo almost immediately came out from the game. Now, I didn't see him point to his arm, didn't see him point to an elbow, didn't even see him point to anywhere specific. He walked off the field very, very gingerly and very, very slowly. And the amateur doctor in me started thinking of, okay, what could be bothering you that's causing you to move in that way? I didn't put anything out speculative on social media. Don't think that's fair or responsible. So the game goes on, and not always, but like I see the guys from Circling, or the crew from Circling Seattle Sports is in the chat right now. And these, the guys and girls who work there can probably attest to this. It's not every time, but when there is an injury, you will sometimes get an update in the press box. So-and-so left with right hamstring tightness. So-and-so left with forearm discomfort. Okay. It doesn't happen always, but it happens often enough that I was hoping, or maybe even expecting, to hear something during the game about Brian Woo. Didn't happen. It was the sixth inning at the time. Maybe they just thought, hey, we have enough time. The game's going to be over relatively soon. We're just going to get to a post game. So game ends, Mariners win. There's been no Brian Woo update, right? I don't know the other Mariners reporters who are here, of which there are a good amount. No one has a Brian Woo update at the time. So the Circling Seattle Sports people say, yeah, 100%. We're always trying to pay attention to the press box PA whenever something like this happens. I was too. There was no update. So nobody has anything. So we go down, and we are waiting for Dan Wilson to come out. And Dan Wilson always comes out first. And Dan Wilson gives an opening statement, talks about the game, talks about what a good win it is. And then the questions start from all the reporters. And there was me, and there were, I think, 3 or 4 other Mariners reporters there. And then there were several Astros reporters that wanted to know about Brian Woo as well. So Dan starts getting asked questions about Brian Woo. And here is a portion of the exchange from Dan Wilson and reporters.
He just had a little pec tightness, and kind of gave us a heads up, and that's why Bizzardo's getting loose. We'll know more tomorrow, likely an MRI, and we'll get to know a little bit more tomorrow. But that's all we know at this point.
What's your level of concern?
I think obviously concerned in some ways, but I think in other ways, Brian's he's a tough cookie, and I think it was smart that he let us know, and there was no reason to push it. So I think we'll just find out more tomorrow. I think there's just too many unknowns at this point.
So that's what Dan Wilson says, and there were a couple of more questions that were of a similar vein that got a similar answer. So that's why I cut it off there. So Dan Wilson said Brian Woo was not experiencing pec tightness before the game, was not experiencing any issues previously. Brian Woo felt this issue with his pec up here in the 5th inning, finished out the inning, came back into the dugout, mentioned what was bothering him. The Mariners sent him out to try it for the 6th, and evidently he couldn't do it, or he didn't want to do it, or he didn't feel right doing it. So again, I'm not a doctor, and I find it dangerous and reckless to go speculating on things. So I really only will say this. The fact that the Mariners felt comfortable enough to send him out to even try the 6th inning, I think is noteworthy. Okay. The fact that Bryan Woo comes to them and says, hey, something feels a little off, but he felt comfortable enough to go back out for the 6th to try, and the Mariners felt comfortable enough to let him. That, if you're looking for a positive to pull at, that would be it as far as I'm concerned, right? He came off the mound. We didn't see him pointing at anything. He didn't, some guys they just know, right? And they'll have their head in their hands, they'll have their head buried in their glove, and they'll know that's it. Bryan Woo did not do that either. Again, if you're grasping for positives, that is where the positives come in as far as I'm concerned. The other positive that comes in is after the game, Bryan Woo was not wrapped up in any ice, did not have any wraps at all. He was just in a t-shirt, as he usually is when these games end. And I don't know, right? He could have gone down to the clubhouse and had ice before we got there. I don't know. But Bryan Woo did not come out in ice or wraps. And again, that is another, if you're grasping for positives, that is another positive for me. So as for what happens next, Bryan Woo's going to get an MRI, and it's going to happen tomorrow. When will we find out an update? I would hope pregame tomorrow. I can't promise that, but I would hope tomorrow. Tex says, interesting to hear he didn't have anything on. Brady, do you think because of his lack of frustration visible and verbal postgame that it could be a positive? I'll play you the Bryan Woo audio right now. Again, this is Bryan Woo spoke for 5-7 minutes, typical after the game. And he was asked a handful of questions about the injury, but the reporters, myself included, did not pile on and ask him the same question over and over again. He basically got every question that you could ask one time, and that was it. So here's a portion of what Bryan Woo had to say.
Yeah, I just felt a little tightness. Tried to come out and throw that 6. Didn't feel like it was, best for the team. I felt like, Baz was ready to go. We'll get some stuff done tomorrow, and I'll know more. I really don't know much so far.
Is this something you were experiencing warming up or before the game, or is this something that just cranked up right there?
No, it just happened at the 5th. So yeah, felt great all game. Just felt it at the end, and felt that it was just smart to not try to push it.
Again, you're kind of reading the tea leaves on all of this stuff. The positives are as I laid them out, I think. He wasn't visibly frustrated leaving the field. He wasn't visibly emotional leaving the field. He wasn't visibly angry leaving the field. After the game, he wasn't wrapped up in ice. And after the game, he spoke in general. And I think that's important. And again, the circling Seattle sports people who are in the chat can vouch for this, right? Like you go to the Astros the other day. Yordan Alvarez injures the ankle. He did not speak to the media at all. And the refrain that came from the Houston media was Yordan Alvarez doesn't want to speak until he knows more, right? And sometimes guys will know it's bad and they won't want to speak until they get a definitive diagnosis. The fact that Bryan Woo spoke, period, tonight, I think is a positive. Again, we're kind of grasping for positives and we're reaching, but I think that is a positive also. No ice, no wrap, no visible frustration, and the fact that he spoke in general. As for my own personal level of concern, what is it? Well, I think anytime a player gets hurt and leaves the game, especially a player who is as competitive as Bryan Woo is, I think it's noteworthy and I think it's nerve-wracking. When a guy like Bryan Woo leaves a game that is essentially a must-win for the division, I think it is noteworthy and I think it is worrisome. And anytime you have a guy leave the game this close to the end of the season, anything could, like anything could knock you out for the rest of the year at this point. So I'm not going to speculate beyond that. We saw Tarek Skubal for the Tigers leave a start recently and then make his next one. So tomorrow can kind of run the full gamut. There are positives. I think there are reasons to be encouraged. But again, anytime you get injured, and anytime you get injured this close to the end of the season where there's not a whole lot of runway there, I think it's noteworthy and worrisome. Dan Wilson, how did I think he felt about it? I think Dan is an even keel guy no matter what. I don't necessarily know that if he was worried, he would have really let on, but he was, he also wasn't down in the dumps. He also wasn't frustrated. He also wasn't angry. He did not show his cards if he was worried. So I don't really think we can read a whole lot into what he said. Another message comes in and says, as soon as we heard that Bryan Woo was actually speaking, figured that to be a general positive as well. It is grasping, but Brady, I feel like we are agreeing here. That's good to know. Okay, that's good to know. When I know more about Bryan Woo and kind of the situation tomorrow, I will let you know. I will be perfectly honest with you. There are other reporters here that have more inside sources than me that might get the answer first. And if they do, then that is great for them. They're doing a good job. It could be a situation where somebody breaks some news earlier, or maybe we all find out at the same time pregame. I don't know how it's going to go, but hopefully the information on Bryan Woo comes in tomorrow at a spot where then I can relay it to you what I know and what I've learned. So that's kind of all for Bryan Woo at the moment. That's what I saw. That's what I witnessed. That's what I heard. And that's where I'm kind of grasping at positives. Obviously, though, in my own level, again, Bryan Woo didn't play like he was concerned. Dan Wilson didn't show his cards. Me, Brady Farkas, the Mariners fan, I'm always going to be concerned when somebody leaves a game that's this big and that guy is that good and he's looking that good. That's always going to worry me. Hope for the best news that we can tomorrow. As for the game itself, moving on. From just a pure baseball perspective, that performance was about everything you could have asked for. And look, I talked about this yesterday. I know the narrative. I've lived the narrative. I've fed into the narrative. The narrative is that the Mariners are going to find a way to let you down. The Mariners are going to find a way to blow it. The Mariners are going to find a way to come up short. I know that that's what several, maybe even most Mariners fans were fearing. This game was an unbelievable answer to that negative way of thinking. I'm not blaming you if you were feeling that way. You've got 50 years worth of evidence to support how you feel if that's how you felt. But this game was a great response to that kind of negative thinking. The Mariners did everything we could have wanted them to do. One, they scored early. They scored in the first inning. Take a little bit of edge off the offense, take a little bit of edge off Bryan Woo, take a little bit of edge off the defense, take a little bit of edge off the crowd, knock a little confidence off Hunter Brown. Scoring early in the first inning with the Julio home run does that. Mission accomplished. Okay, so they scored early. They scored first along the same lines, right? Put pressure on the Astros, take pressure off yourself. And then they found a way to add on, right? You score again on the Gino home run in the middle innings. You score on the Robles home run on the later middle innings. You score on the Naylor home run at the end of the game. Look, 4 solo home runs. I would love to see the Mariners hit 9 doubles to score, but that's not reality against the caliber of pitcher that Hunter Brown is. That guy's going to be a top 3 Cy Young finisher. Like, it's going to be Skubal, Crochet, Brown. They're all going to be battling for the Cy Young. Skubal's going to win it, but Crochet and Brown are going to be right there, probably 2 and 3. Maybe Brown even finishes second. You're not going to get 9 doubles against that guy. So to score early, to score first, to score in the middle innings, to play add-on was absolutely phenomenal offensively. They jacked up the pitch count in the middle innings. They made sure to get him out after 6. I thought maybe they were going to knock him out in the 5th. They got him out at the 6th inning mark, and they got to the bullpen, and they got to the lower leverage guys in the bullpen because they had the lead, and they were able to go add on against them, right? Against De Los Santos, against Kimbrel. They were able to go and play add on. From a pitching perspective, I mean, Brian Wu, we talked about, he was dominant through 5. 98 miles an hour on the fastball. Slider sweeper, threw a good changeup, dominated the strike zone, went after guys. Dan Wilson said the one thing he wanted to see out of this weekend was the Mariners sticking to their identity, and that includes attacking the strike zone on the mound, and Brian Wu did that in spades. But it wasn't just him. Edward Bizardo going 2 innings was phenomenal. Matt Brash working around an error from J.P. Crawford to get a double play, working around a hit. Andres Munoz working around a hit. Again, the guys at the back end have walked the tightrope a little bit lately, but they found a way to get through as well. The defense with J.P. Crawford and Gino, they each had an error. That was a problem late, but the defense early was excellent. Julio with a phenomenal play in center field to rob Jesus Sanchez of a double. We saw Gino make a phenomenal play to take a hit away. I want to say it was from Jake Myers. So we saw a lot of good in this game and a lot of answers to kind of the negative doubts about this team and if they could do it. Now, it's not done, right? The job is not done. The Mariners have to go out one of the next 2 days and win, but they've set themselves up in a great position to be able to do that. And I said to somebody, I met a great listener, Jacob, earlier today, who was at the game, who asked me, Brady, like, who do you think is going to win the series? And I said, whoever wins on Friday is going to win the series. I have been as negative as any of you have been in my life about the Mariners, right? I also have waited for the other shoe to drop over and over and over again. But I believe the Mariners are going to win this series. I trust them to win one of the next 2 games. And if they do that, then they're going to have a really, really great opportunity to go and win the American League West for the first time since 2001. I mean, the actual game itself was about as good as it gets today. The Woo news puts a huge damper on everything. I'm well aware of that. But the game itself was about as good as it gets. And from the pitching to the bullpen to the defense early to the home runs to the at-bats against Brown, I mean, there was so much to like here. So much to like here. Bobby says, I love your podcast. Thanks for the content. Well, thank you very much, Bobby. Appreciate that. Other people are getting in. Again, you can ask questions if you want here, whether you're on YouTube or on Twitter, and I'll answer as many as I can if you have them. Interesting day, just briefly, and not that anyone cares about my travel, but just interesting day in general. Got up this morning, 3:45 a.m. Eastern time, and ended up, multiple flights, Philly to Houston, got here, got to the ballpark at what I think was 3:00 Central time, and I felt very good about how the Mariners were looking. If you listen to yesterday's podcast, one of the things that I said I wanted to see was like, how are the Mariners acting in the clubhouse? Do they look tight? Do they look loose? Do they look too loose? Do they look too tight? Like, what are they doing? And I'm happy to report the Mariners looked the exact same today as they do every time I see them. It felt like a normal. Athletes will always tell you, oh, it's just another game. They will always say that, but you never really know if they feel that way. They looked like they look every single time that I'm here. Handful of guys are playing cards here. Handful of guys are doing crossword puzzles there. Handful of guys are on their phones there. Guys are, and guys are coming in and out, right? They're going to the batting cage. They're in meetings. So they're not just sitting in the clubhouse the entire time. But this is how they look. And I don't think they were doing anything different today. I thought they came into this game confident. I thought they came into this game believing in themselves, and it didn't look like they were putting too much pressure on it. And I think that's something that Dan Wilson has stressed all year, is kind of being in the moment. And I thought these guys did that. I did have an opportunity briefly to catch up with both Dominic Canzone and Luke Raley. I'm going to play those now. It's less than 4 minutes in total, so it is not a long time. But admittedly, I have wanted to talk to Dom Canzone for maybe a month and a half now, and just have never been able to catch him. Not his fault, not my fault. Just haven't been able to catch Dom Canzone in the clubhouse. I wanted to catch him in New York when I was there at the Yankees series. I wanted to catch him in New York at the Mets series. I wanted to catch him in Tampa the last time I was there, and just wasn't able to. Got a chance to talk with Dom Canzone today for about 2 minutes, and just want to play a little bit of it here, kind of on what's gone into his turnaround, what's gone into his development this year. And he had a nice hit today as well, single to center field. I was talking with Sean O'Malley last month, and we were talking a lot about you. We talked about Ben Williamson too, but I asked him this question. I'm going to ask you the improvements you've made this year: mechanical, approach, confidence, all of the above. Kind of what's gone into kind of you going to that next level?
I think most of it is approach, and then the other aspect again is just being healthy this year. So last year I was dealing with a AC joint that was bothering me a lot of the year. So it's just nice to be healthy, and then again from the approach standpoint, just trying to stay to the middle of the field and do damage that way.
Sean talked about having a conversation with you and kind of figuring out what kind of hitter you wanted to be. What did he mean by that? What were those conversations like?
I think in the past, like kind of when I got called up here and stuff like that, the damage was mostly they just wanted me to hit a lot of doubles and homers, is kind of the vibe that I got. And kind of just with this new staff, the objective was just to hit line drives up the middle, and the other stuff will come with that. So I think just simpling down the approach, and it's really allowed myself to be a complete hitter, and I think it's helped a lot of other guys do the same. So
Dan's been really complimentary of your ability to hit lefties this year. Is that something that you really worked on, or something you always could do, but you didn't necessarily get the chance to show it off?
Yeah, I think kind of goes back to what you said before, kind of just confidence in getting more at-bats against them. Anytime you kind of face a lefty once every couple of weeks, it's probably not going to go in your favor, but when you're getting consistent reps and playing consistently against them, you got more confidence and you see more pitches from them and you just feel more comfortable.
You're still a huge part of the lineup. The playing time has been a little more sporadic recently. How have you stayed ready for the moments when you're called upon?
Yeah, just like you said, just staying ready and just keeping the body in good shape, and just trying to again just stick with the same approach I've had all year.
Obviously, the series is big, but individually, 3 homers the other night. Have you reflected on how maybe cool that is, just from a personal standpoint?
No, I think that's a after the season type of ordeal. Definitely want to just focus on the series and push to the playoffs. So that was Dom Canzone, right? Just like I said, 2 minutes. First time I've gotten a chance to talk with Dom Canzone this year. I've gotten a chance to talk with a lot of guys this season, right? I go back to my first trip I was in Seattle for opening day, but I wasn't in the clubhouse as often that week. When I was there for Cal's press conference, talked to him at that time, Dan Wilson a lot, but no one else in the clubhouse. I go back to Chicago. First time I was there in May with the White Sox series. I talked to Miles Mastrobuoni, talked to Emerson Hancock, talked to Mitch Garver in that series. I know, look, I've talked to Ben Williamson this year. I've talked to Cole Young this year. There's a lot of stuff that's gone on this year, and a lot of good conversations I've had with people and kind of forming relationships with guys. And Bryce Miller I've talked to. And this is the first time I got a chance to talk to Canzone, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done this year. And I think the nugget that he said about Dan Wilson and this staff, Edgar, Kevin Seitzer, is that they just want him to be a good hitter, right? Like hit line drives, and then everything else will take care of itself. And that sounds so simplistic, but not enough people are teaching hitting that way right now across every level, right? It's all about elevating, hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And Dom Canzone this year has made a conscious decision with the guidance of this staff to just hit line drives, just hit the ball in the middle of the field, hit the ball hard. And I think that has obviously, worked in his favor. He's been excellent this year. And again, he's not playing every single day, but it does seem like the lineup is now turning to
the best version of the Mariners being Victor Robles in right, Jorge Polanco at second, and then Dom Canzone in the DH spot. So more stuff to see there. I did get a chance to talk to Luke Raley. I'm actually going to save that. I'm going to put it out in a written piece at Roundtable Sports. We talked a lot about Luke Raley being a good teammate, and I just find that interesting at the pro level because you don't always see that. So, all right, couple things here. I was asked again today, Brady, how can we help you? How can we help you? How can we help Taryn Kowach, who's my coworker at Roundtable Sports? And my answer is always going to be the same. Read our articles. That is the number one way you can help us. This podcast is hugely important to me. It's hugely important to us as a group. It becomes even more important when we turn the podcast into written content, and now we're kind of able to recirculate it in multiple ways. So the number one way you can help us is read our content. Okay. Tell a friend about us. Tell a friend about this podcast. Tell a friend about our written content. It's called Mariners on Roundtable Sports, right? We used to be Mariners on SI. Now it's Mariners on Roundtable. And it's exactly what it sounds like. If you join the community feature there, it is free to do so. No paywall, no subscription. We're not trying to annoy you. We're not trying to extort money out of you. If you join the conversation, like go join the community, it just basically gives you access to our newsletter to see our written content easier and allows you to join the conversation with us. And eventually, as we continue to grow, we're going to start doing some stuff there kind of exclusive. Again, all free, no paywall, no subscription, but we're going to do some stuff there for sure. So, Mariners Saturday and Sunday here in Houston. Maybe, just maybe, a chance to do another one of these live on Sunday after Sunday Night Baseball once the series ends. I'm excited. Buster Olney of ESPN is going to be in town tomorrow and on Sunday with the ESPN crew. Buster comes on our show every Thursday. Get a chance to see Buster in person. I'm very, very excited about that. But mainly, and I appreciate everybody who's watching right now. We got 180 plus people watching at the moment, and I don't do a whole lot of live video stuff. Not because I don't like to, just because since I'm on the East Coast, it's often so late. You know, it's 2, 3 in the morning sometimes when I'm recording, and I just don't know who's awake. So that's why I don't do a lot of live video stuff. But here I am on the road in Houston. I'm pumped to be here. It's an honor to be on this trip. It's been an honor to be doing this as my full-time job for the first time this season. So I appreciate all the support. I've had so many people reach out and say, hey, Brady, we love the podcast. We love the written content. We love what you and Taryn do. Love the access. Love whatever. Sometimes I overtweet, but people don't seem to be bothered by that too often. So I appreciate everybody. You guys are the best. Mariners fans are the best. And I hope we're all rewarded this weekend, right? Mariners need to win one more game this weekend. And if they do that, they'll walk out of here with a guaranteed division lead, and they'll walk out of here with a guaranteed extra game in hand because they will have had the season tiebreaker over the Astros. Win tomorrow or win Sunday and accomplish huge goals. And while we're at it, be thinking positive thoughts about Brian Wu. That's going to do it for me here live from Houston. We'll be back at it again. Follow me on social media at Refuse to Lose Pod. Again, Mariners on Roundtable, all of our written content. And go subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also follow the channel on YouTube. We'll start doing more and more things here, I think, as well, especially as we hit the off season, because I won't have to worry about it being 3 o'clock in the morning. I think maybe an off-season goal of mine is to get more video out there. So again, sorry for the darkness. Sorry for the fact that I couldn't yell. They haven't evicted me from the hotel yet. And we'll be back at it again all weekend long, live from Houston. Thanks, everybody. And as always, go M's.